there's people out there that are just working harder than everybody else, and they're gonna keep doing it.
Yeah.
And that's their grind. You know, and those people are super valuable because they change everybody's perspective of like what's possible, what to strive for, and what it takes. Like, do you really want to be a champion? Why? Because you just want to be cool? You want to be the coolest guy on the block? Like, you're not going to win. You're going to find some fucking psychopath who just lives it. And it's their whole life. And if it's not your whole life, get out. Get out.
Day 63 of recording myself every single day on my journey to become a professional soccer player, a business owner, and just a better version of myself. If you couldn't already tell from the montage, I have a shit ton of points to talk about. The only way you would be able to tell that is because it was a fitness session. And during those fitness sessions, I don't know what the fuck happens to my brain. I talked about it, but I just get point after point. Halfway because I'm listening to a podcast that is like a conversational between two people who I think are smart and have ideas kind of similar to the ones I have on my own, but have gone through it to where they've come out the other side, so they have a little bit better of realizations than I have right now. But also just in general, I think more clearly through the points that I want to talk about and I want to do. So the first thing I want to talk about is your current beliefs are based on your current frame. A really big topic that they talked about in the podcast, it was between Chris Williamson and Stephen Bartlett. Modern Wisdom, and then Stephen Bartlett is the podcast host of Diary of a CEO and book of Diary of a CEO, etc. Anyway, a really big topic that they were talking about was limiting beliefs holding you back. This example that Stephen gave was that he just had worked with a hypnotist that helped him quit sugar. The way that the hypnotist did this is that it went back in time to where what triggered the event to where Steven had the sugar cravings. It was actually when he was younger, his family didn't have a lot, and he saw his lunchbox as inadequate. So the hypnotist reframed the thoughts that Steven had underlying to allow himself to be okay with that, with not having enough lunch, and that it wasn't his fault, it wasn't his family's fault, and that he doesn't have to make up for it now. And there's a lot of beliefs I bet that I have and you have that you don't even know about that significantly dictate what type of person you are. And sometimes, especially when it's some like habit or something you have to quit, I think either if you have the ability to speak to like a professional mentalist, do that. But you have to really go deep and like journal and discover or talk it out about what actually started this addiction or bad habit. When you were usually, I think it's going to be just based on what they're talking about, it's going to be something that was in childhood or like a traumatic event. So for me, it would probably be something in childhood because I've always really wanted to play video games, but I would have to hide it when my dad was home because he didn't like me doing it because it wasn't good for me, which is a completely valid take. And especially now, considering how like big the industry has gotten in like attention grabbing and not allowing you to really function properly without needing a dopamine hit of playing a game or watching an Instagram reel. I have to, if I really want to break that, it may take me having to really journal it out and understand why I do that. What am I looking for in the hits that I'm not getting from my work or that I think I'm going to find? Next, for me, this isn't anything I heard on podcasts. This is just something that I thought about. I'm someone who's a big saver. So instead of someone who, as soon as they get money, they spend it right away, I'm someone who will just put it in my bank account and then keep it in my bank account, saving it for a rainy day or saving it for the right time. But the problem that I have is that I'll never use it. And especially with business and especially with just living my life, I don't want to have all the money in the bank account and not live a fulfilling life and save for a rainy day that never happens. So in the future, what I'm doing right now, I got all my expenses from the time in Madrid from my mom on the credit card. And then I'm going to create a budget for myself, not only now and going into next year, but what do I want my future budget to be in terms of lifestyle? So that means, what am I going to spend money on, and what income do I need to pay myself, separating myself from the business in order to live that lifestyle? So right now I have all the expenses from January to about May. It's about 4.6 months. And then I am also looking at housing that is slightly nicer than what I can afford right now, because that's what I would like to live in. And I'm going to then calculate where I'm at and then where I want to be and how much income I need to get from where I'm at to where I want to be. Where I want to be is in a slightly nicer apartment. I think the apartment is probably going to be around $3,000 a month for two bedrooms. So it'd probably be around $1,500 rent per month, unless I might have to cover a little bit more because I'm not sure if my roommate can afford that. But my plan is to where I have 6 months of savings, and then I have the ability to cover the entire rent and my expenses if need be. So what I'm thinking my entire cost is right now, would be right now, I think $5,000 a month is something that I can reasonably do. Like that $3,000 a month is a really nice apartment. And then I found that I spend a little bit less than $2,000 just in my general expenses. Maybe if I earn a little bit more money, I'll spend a little bit more. But if I can get to $5,000 a month, I think I could reasonably live in a really nice area and have like a great life. And I don't think that's an insane amount of money to earn. That's about $60,000 a year. So although that's not including taxes, so that might take a little bit in it. That's something I'll probably have to think about as well. Anyway, for me, calculating a spending plan so that I don't save up all my money. I want to have an emergency fund, obviously, if something goes wrong. And everything that I don't have, I want to be investing it in myself, whether that's in the business or whether that's in certain things that will help me soccer-wise, like, for example, AG1, which is like a monthly subscription, but it is a little bit expensive. It's just under $100 USD a month, but investing in things like that to help me have a better edge on the field. I still do have to include my agency fee, which I haven't done. I think it's $18,000 for 10 months. So I don't know what that is off the top of my head, but that's like another $2,000, less than $2,000 per month, or like $1,800, $1,500 per month, $1,600. I don't know. But the point is that I want to fully map out where I'm at right now, and then where I want to be to where I'm financially stable and building wealth, and then having everything else that I don't need in my emergency fund or in my living expenses going to either reinvesting back in the business or reinvesting back in myself for soccer. Next point is that this was from the podcast, and it's you have to be a practitioner, not a parrot. You can learn a lot about becoming successful via learning from other people, whether as books or podcasts, or any other way that you find. But in order for you to have like the original thoughts and for you to actually teach someone else, you have to go through that yourself. I can't be creating these YouTube videos and all I'm doing all day is watching podcasts or reading books. I have to actually do the work. I have to actually do my fitness. I have to actually sit down and create a business. I can't give advice to people and tell people how they should live if I'm not doing it myself. And I think through actually like practicing and doing the work, you learn a lot more about what it actually takes to go through. There is a certain degree that you can explain to people. There comes a like level that you can only really understand unless you go through it. The next point I have is that no time management works if you don't have discipline. There's a bunch of different time management systems in terms of time blocking and deep work sessions, but if you don't have the discipline to do it, it doesn't matter how you lay out your day. It doesn't matter how you plan to do your goals. It's not going to get it done. So that's something I think I have to think about with my calendar app. I want to help people reach their goals. I can help them lay it out, but I can't sit and do the work for them. So the way I'm thinking that I can help them become more disciplined is to block out the distractions via the time blocking app. And then also helping them remind them of their goals so that they get that little like motivation to continue to work hard, because that's something you learn over time. As I'm doing my juggling, I'll not constantly, but every now and then where I really need to, or if I'm feeling down, I'll kind of remind myself why I'm doing this and what I'm trying to do or what I'm trying to chase or what I'm trying to build. And it helps me get in the right frame of mind. And then once I get through the workout, I feel a lot better. In the beginning, it's a little bit hard to have that to yourself, but maybe the prompting via the app will help people build that on themselves. It may have the opposite effect to where they get reliant on it and that they can't create the motivation for themselves in their brain to start the work, so that they rely on it. But that's something that I just want to help. I want the app to be as good as possible so that it helps as many people reach their goals. Because first of all, it's a little bit selfish, but I want it to help me reach my goals. But if I make it as good as I can for me, then I wouldn't be surprised if it can help other people. So the next point that I have was actually from the podcast as well. It was about the human experience is constantly just trying to avoid pain. Seeking pleasure is trying to avoid the pain of being bored. The example that they gave in the podcast was the pursuit of lust is the avoidance of boredom. And it seems crazy to think about your entire life like that. All you're trying to do is avoiding pain, but it helps you realize what is causing the discomfort and that you're trying to avoid something, and being aware of what your body's doing automatically will help you solve the problem a lot better. For me, when I'm doing Instagram, when I'm on Instagram, it's usually when I'm doing work and I'm bored, or I'm in a session and it's really hard. You need to then take a second and then understand what you really need to do to move forward. If you're really bored, sometimes you just kind of have to stop being a little bitch and lock in. I don't know how to say it other than that. There's going to be some other times where you're really struggling to write a piece of copy, or you're really struggling to write a book, or you're really struggling to make progress on the work. And it's because you don't have the skills that are needed to do that. And instead of just sitting there, whenever you start to go work on it and then looking at your phone, maybe you have to look at the docs for JavaScript or the docs for something else, or research a specific topic so you can be a better expert on it. And then that will allow you to get over the humps or obstacles that are coming in your way so that you can continue to do the work on it. The next point that I don't think it was really mentioned in the podcast, but I've heard of it before. It was a little bit, but it wasn't explicitly talked about in the way that I wanted it to be and that I've heard of it. The next few points are kind of connected, which are kind of funny because they're kind of contradicting, but I think they'll make sense individually, and then they'll apply to different people at different points in their life. So 1, you want to play the game to get rid of it. There's certain things in life, certain pursuits in life that you're not going to be able to really give up until you really reach it. I'm going to be happy when I blank. This could be either when I grow a business to X amount, when I make X amount in my bank account, when I have X amount of followers on blank, when I've posted blank amount of videos. People think that is going to be what makes them happy, reaching those goals. But then once they get there, they feel a lot of the times that they're kind of empty, and then they just move the goalpost farther and then continue to move it farther, continue to move it farther, continue to move it farther. I think having a goal is great. And then you kind of have to understand what you're trying to get out of the game. If it's something finite like money, and pushing from having $100 million to having $1 billion doesn't really make a difference. At that point, if you're just doing it for the money, you don't get very many gains from going from 100 millionaire to billionaire. You basically can afford all the nicest hotels, all the nicest restaurants, all the nicest apartments, anything that you really want. Having a billionaire, you might have a slightly nicer boat, it's not going to make a marginal difference in your life. And if the pain that is needed to get to $1 billion, if there's a hefty price on the pain from 100 million to $1 billion, it's not really worth it. If you have intrinsic motivation from enjoying the work that you're doing, then going to 100 mil to $1 billion, I congratulate you. I'm not going to judge someone on what they deem makes them happy. Some people really like working, some people don't like working. But my point is that if you're trying to just chase monetary goals, and like chase goals of I want attention via the followers or via posting, the goal should either be to be better or to enjoy the work that you're already doing. Because I think that allows you to not be trapped in the illusion that you're going to be happy when this happens. You want to kind of be happy along the way. Just reaching your goal it's not going to be this magical moment where everything after that, you're going to be completely ecstatic if you have to suffer the entire time. Of course, there might be a period of time where you are suffering. If you are like at the very bottom, you're very poor, you don't have enough to eat, having enough to where you can eat regularly every day or have a roof over your head, it's a completely different story. I'm more so talking about the people who are already at the top or already like kind of stable, reaching from the very, very top to the very, very, very top. It's not going to make that much of a difference. And I think you don't want to catch yourself in that illusion. Next thing that I do want to talk about, I said earlier, kind of contradicts the last point of trying to make the game finite to where you can play the game so that it ends. There is a way to make the game to where you can play infinitely. That's mainly if you enjoy what you're doing. That's actually what you want to do regardless of the money, especially if you made enough money to where you can reasonably support yourself, and the incremental gains in money don't really mean anything for you. The happiness and that's not really what you're striving for, and it doesn't really drive your happiness in life because you've already kind of met the monetary amount that allows you to live the lifestyle that you wanted to live. If you are going to try to play the game, this is very particular for business because over time businesses rise and fall. It's a little bit different for sports athletes because your body naturally shuts down. But in terms of business, you see it all the time, how big companies, they'll rise up and then a lot of them will fall down. A lot of the biggest companies today weren't around in 100 years ago. I don't think a single one of the top like 5 was around 100 years ago. And that just shows that when you kind of stop experimenting and stop trying to get better, it caps the limit that you have and won't allow you to continually play. When you're creating a business, you want the business to be able to continue to get better and continue to adapt to the current market standards, whatever that is. In the current time, I would think adapting to AI and trying to understand how your company can use AI to leverage the intelligence to make a more efficient and just better business. There's a lot of different things that you can do with agents that I'm going to be learning tomorrow and in the future that will fundamentally change how businesses are run. And there's going to be companies that are left behind. There's going to be new companies that are going to knock off old companies, or they're going to create their own niche to where they're like the new tech. But the point is, you have to set up your business to where it will not only be available in 5 years, but it will also be available in 50 years. That's if you want to continue playing the game. If it's something where it's like, oh, honestly, I only want to do this for 5 years, then you should still set up the business to where it can be infinite because it will probably have a better multiple on the selling. And then you have to make it to where you aren't really a focal point in the business. You're just someone who manages the day-to-day operations and can still drive a lot of value, but isn't dependent on you being there 100% of the time. Otherwise, you're never going to be able to exit. The next point that I have is from the podcast as well. The seemingly unimportant things compound. If you want to be the best, you have to sweat over the small things. So I think this applies to business, and this also applies to soccer. First, I'm going to talk about soccer in terms of the small details, in terms of your touch, in terms of your awareness, in terms of how you interact with your teammates, in terms of your team chemistry, which is kind of similar to the last one. All those add up over time and make you kind of the soccer player you are. I think something I've realized over the past few years is that even if there's a little bit of a difference in soccer players, it makes a world of difference on the field. Even if someone is 80% tired and the person who's a little bit worse comes in 100%, I still think most of the time the person who's 80% tired will still outplay the person who's at 100%, but just a little bit worse. And I think those small details of having slightly better touch, having slightly better awareness and control and calmness on the ball compound a lot into a vastly better player because of the amount of decisions that are made in a field. Your positioning, who you're passing to, what you're looking at can completely change the game. And you have to do, I would say, millions of decisions. They're all like very, very small, but you have to do millions of decisions just within one game. And each decision kind of compounds you into being a good player or into being a bad player. So the little details in terms of when you're practicing your juggling, trying to get it to where it's as controlled as possible. When you're practicing your dribbling, trying to get it to where it's as exact as possible. When you're practicing your passing, trying to get it right to the right foot that you want to pass it to, and no matter what the distance is. And then same with shooting, trying to get it pinpoint accurate. It's just, there's going to be very little details in your technique and in your like hunger to do better that are going to really compound you into a different player. Then in business, there's millions of small things that go into everything in the business. For example, the website, the header, there's like, you can choose to do literally infinite variations. Like I can't even talk about how many variations of everything on a web page that there are, but very small changes. I don't know if you've ever studied A/B testing, but a good example is that the professor will take you through showing you different website examples, and just that changing the web page, landing page could change the conversion rate by over 100%. And in businesses, those small margins, if you can get 1% increased conversion rate or less churn rate on just changing a small feature, that can make a huge difference to the business and especially in the profit. This was talked about in the podcast, but I think the easiest way to connect it is with the podcast I listened to yesterday or the day before with Alex Hermosi. He was going through a business, specifically a restaurant, on how to improve their revenue and profit. And changing something seemingly insignificant, changing the prices from, for example, $16.00 to $16.99, a lot of people aren't going to notice that small difference, but it could make they were selling 100,000 customers a year. That's $200,000 just in profit, which is a 33% bump in their profit year over year. That small change. That's just one change that they talked about, and that small change could make it absolutely like crazy. They can 600 to 800K is an insane change, and to have it from such a small little thing, that's just, I think, what it takes to be successful. You have to kind of be anal over the small details because they really add up. They really compound into the final product, and you're gonna see it in your product, you're going to see it in your business, especially if you're looking at the financials. If you are paying attention to the small details, you'll see that you'll have a lot more in terms of like revenue and profit. And a lot of the changes you're just like ignorant to, maybe not on purpose, but I bet there's hundreds of small changes that you can implement, some of which are going to be harder, but some of which could be really like simple, just changing the wording on your copy or changing your landing page. I guarantee you there's hundreds of different small little things that you could test to see if the conversion rate on your website works. Or if you have like a brick and mortar store, I bet there's hundreds of things with the menu, with the way your servers treat people, with loyalty programs that can help you change into being either a profitable business or a vastly profitable business. Keep going. The next point I have is the temptation of other opportunities takes away from getting where you want to be. You'll be forever changing your focus, thus becoming a master of none. So this is a big problem with people who kind of jump from idea to idea. And this is something that I really want to avoid myself doing. I think the recent thing that I see myself trying to jump to is the AI videos. That is why I'm only taking a position as trying to help Sammy. I'm not going to actually pursue this myself because I don't want to change my focus. I want my focus, I think, for at least the next 2 years to be on the calendar app on Amplify. So I may miss opportunities that will come up, but that's okay because first of all, I can't make all the money in the world. there's going to be something, and no one can. So there's going to be something you're not going to be able to make, and that's okay. You have to be okay with that. So having that frame / mindset allows you to then better clearly say no to opportunities just because it's new. Especially because you don't know the problems that come with that industry. If you think it's a good idea, you probably don't know what is the problems with that. For example, for the AI video, what's hard about it? One, it's a very new thing, so you're gonna have to be experimenting a lot. Two, you have to use Google Veo and Google Flow. The videos, I tested it out. You only get 5 videos a day on the pro account, which is I got via my school email. And if you only get 5 videos and you're trying to post regularly, you're probably gonna have to use the API, which is, I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of expensive. So you have to then use that cost for it. One, the making content for people who enjoy, it's kind of easy if you just want to experiment and continue to do it, but then that's going to drive up your costs. Point is that I don't know all the problems that are involved with trying to make this AI video. Google might come out and say like, oh, we're watermarking stuff so that people can know that this is AI. Another example that I see on my Instagram and that me and Sammy have been talking about is making these AI girls who are like OnlyFans models, and they'll talk to dudes and then the dudes will send them money. And like, that's a great opportunity for anyone who wants to get in that, for someone who doesn't really have anything and wants to experiment with AI or just make money. But I bet there's problems with that I don't know about in terms of liability, in terms of morality, especially someone who wants to get better at lust. Kind of like preying on other people's lust kind of seems wrong. I don't know the problems with these AI videos, whether it is the comedy ones or whether it is the AI like OnlyFans one. So then I probably shouldn't go into it. I kind of know the problems with the calendar app, considering I've been working with it for a little bit, but there's still so much more I have to learn. I don't know all the problems with agents, so I have to continue to learn and continue to use them so that I know like, oh, this is what they're good at, this is what they're not good at. And then also, I'm not an expert on the models of specifically Google, because I think I'm going to be using GCP, which is their studio, in order to make the agents and then run generative AI models in your applications. So I'm going to have to experiment what models work in what circumstances, how expensive are the models, how do I even work GCP. That is something I'm going to have to learn. I don't know all the problems yet, but I have a greater understanding of the problems within the calendar app and within the GCP, considering I have been learning about it and they are tied together and part of my overall business strategy. Changing now into the AI girl, into the AI comedy, would just be jumping at the next shiny object, and it's going to make me not get to where I want to be if I'm continually jumping from one thing to another, because I'll never fully master what it's like to actually take something from 0 to 1. I'll just master how to take something from 0 to 0.25, and I'll never get over that point, and I think I'll just be stuck in like a continuous game. The next point that I have is, don't just get it done, do it well, and then mastery leads you further. This is something that was really evident to me while I was doing my juggling. I was doing my freestyling, which you should have seen today. And I had this like, not goal, but kind of like thing that I wanted to do. So it was a inside, right, around the world, outside, right, around the world, inside, left, around the world, outside, left, around the world. And then the little right flick up, jump over left, left flick up, jump over right, double right inside the world, double left inside the world. And I found myself just trying to get it done and not actually do each individual skill well. And I think that actually leads to you taking longer in order to get to the final product, which is doing all the skills in a row without dropping the ball once, which I actually did do today on the last try before the timer ran out and I was still going, but I finished it. But my point was, I found myself just trying to get it done instead of trying to do it as well as I can. There is a limit to where you don't want to obsess over the details so much that you get paralyzed into never progressing, but just trying to get something done, just looking at the time saying like, oh, like when is my deep work session done, isn't actually deep work, because you're not focusing on the work that's in front of you. You're focusing on trying to move on to the next thing in order to become a master / be the best at anything, you kind of have to sit down with it and do it until you're a master of it. And just trying to get something done doesn't build you into a master. Doing something well and then continually trying to do it better and better and better will make you into a master. The final point that I have today is from the podcast as well. It was a kind of frame of mind. I think they talked a lot about frames of mind, but this one was about how people perceive where they are. And I thought it was a really important point. I don't think I've ever really heard about this brought up by anyone before, but it was when you're changing into a new thing. So I think one of the greatest examples of this is when you're going to university for the first time, or when you're jumping into a job. When you get a job and you're going for the first time, you can either have one of two mindsets. One, this is if you're like kind of worried, if you're kind of worried about it. One, this is a growth moment, or two, you're gonna have imposter syndrome and you're gonna feel like you don't deserve to be there. First of all, I don't believe in deserving anymore. No one deserves anything. No one deserves to be somewhere. No one deserves, no matter what. You're not really entitled to anything. So you can't allow yourself to be worried that you didn't get the job. You got the job in the first place. At this point, all you can do is learn as much as you can so that if you're in an internship, they give you a return offer, or if you're in the job, they continue to renew your contract. If you take the opportunity as you think you're an imposter and you don't deserve to be there, you're kind of gonna loop that in your mind, and it's gonna make you continually think that, and I think it's gonna make you more prone to making mistakes. You have to kind of see like you have to have a growth mindset and saying like, I might not know exactly what I'm doing right now. I might not be the quality of these people, but this is why I'm here. I'm here to grow and learn to where I can be at the same level as these people. So just taking your mind and being okay with being in a position to where you don't know anything. Because if you are forever scared of being an imposter, having imposter syndrome, you're never going to take the leap into either the profession that you want or into a new life. If you're in a situation that you don't really like and you want to change everything, you're not going to be able to do that because you're too scared. You have to be able to go into an unknown situation and grow. That could just mean moving to a new place and being okay with being in a new area that you're not really familiar with. I've moved from my hometown, New Orleans, where I lived for 18 years, to California to college. Now California to Madrid, and then for this summer, I'm living in Dubrovnik for only a month alone, but still, being okay with moving to place so that you can grow. A lot of people, I honestly just find it sad. If you grow up and stay in one place your entire life, I think it's a lot harder for you to grow. You're not really facing as much like uncomfortable situations and difficulties because you always have like familiar people around you. You always have a familiar area around you. You have to put yourself in situations to where you do have to grow, and that requires you to be in a new situation. So going back to that, if you're worried about like not fitting in, you're worried about not being the best, you have to change your mindset from I'm worried about this not working out to this is an opportunity for me to learn as much as I can. And then I think having that mindset will allow you to hit the ground running, and then also be more prone to asking for help and asking questions to the people around you, because your mindset is only to grow and only to be better. You don't have the like worry about, oh, what do these people think about me, or what does my boss think about me, or what do my colleagues think about me, or what do the other interns think about me. It's more so like, if they know something that I don't, why don't I just ask them so that then I can know? And if in the future, if I can just like stack little things that I learn every day, I'll eventually become a master of it. A lot of points today. I told you it was a fitness day, so that's really typical of those kind of days. I did change my format of editing first thing in the morning, and I think it does wonders for the rest of the day. I didn't do exactly what I wanted to do in terms of going to sleep. I think I started this video around 9:55 and I plan to be in bed by 10. However, it is a significant improvement upon what I have been doing, and I still think I can wake up at 6:45. Wake up at 6:45 tomorrow, because I do allocate more time than I usually do sleep to my like wake up, or my sleep and wake up timer on my iPhone or on my Apple devices. The point being, I want to be an executioner. I want to be the best version of myself. The best version of myself controls his mind when he's going to sleep. And if me doing my editing in the morning, how I talked about yesterday, how I procrastinating, so then I continually push back editing, continually push back doing this video, just having me doing the video makes it a lot easier for me to just sit down, because I don't have two different things I have to do. I just have one. So that's all I have for today. Hopefully you got some value from it. Any feedback would be appreciated. I hope you keep pushing. I hope something works out. I hope you enjoy the video. I hope you got some value from it, and I'll see you tomorrow for the next video. Day 63 complete. Good night.